The first day of intergalactic culture exchange class 101 was supposed to be a hopeful beginning, a step toward peace and understanding. That's what the coalition had promised when it opened the class to a single human candidate, one student among 43 alien species, each more advanced than the last. And so, in a gleaming spire of polished stone and humming energy fields on the planet Varick 9, Jonas Reyes stepped to the threshold in his simple Earth-issued uniform. He wore no exoskin armor, no personal AI assistant, no subdermal translator, just a well-worn backpack and the heavy silence of every eye turning toward him. The stares came first, unblinking, calculating. Some curious, most amused. No one spoke. No one greeted him. Jonas didn't flinch. He found an empty seat near the back of the domed amphitheater. As he passed a cluster of Siltari students, tall, silver-skinned, faces segmented like living sculpture, he caught the tail end of a whispered joke in trade tongue. Primitive. Another voice snorted. Mammalian anomaly. Jonas sat, back straight, eyes forward. The instructor floated in moments later. Literally. Professor Zelquan was an Aquarius species, their gas-filled bodies suspended in jellyfish-like transparency. Their voice reverberated in every student's inner ear. Today, we learn the meaning of culture through shared memory. Each of you will present a core ritual from your species' development era. Not war, not conquest, something civilized. Murmurs spread across the room. Jonas kept silent. He'd been briefed. Observe first. Speak last. Don't escalate. The first few presentations began. A glowing orb displayed images from each student's memory matrix, exotic rites of passage, telepathic bonding rituals, feats of artistic expression carried out in gravity-defying temples. Then it was time for Jonas. He stood when called. His hands clenched for a moment, then relaxed. He cleared his throat. My name is Jonas Reyes. I come from Earth. My people are still learning. Several chuckles rippled across the chamber. Jonas ignored them. The ritual I chose is not ancient. It's modern. We call it a funeral honor guard. The orb shimmered and flickered. Unlike the pristine holograms before, Jonas was grainy. Recorded footage from a battlefield. A dozen soldiers folding a flag. A lone bugler playing taps over a field of white gravestones. The silence in the room was suddenly thick. He spoke quietly. We do this to honor those who didn't return. Not for glory. Not for the politics. Just the people who gave everything for the ones they loved. Professor Zelquan tilted in the air. Curious. A death ritual rooted in emotional grief rather than ascension or rebirth. Thank you, Jonas Reyes. But the moment didn't end there. The score, a towering brute from the reptilian Carvax dominion, let out a low, hissing laugh. You honor your fallen because you're too weak to forget them. Your species clings to loss like parasites to a corpse. Another student added, Is this what humans call culture? Weeping over meat sacks. Jonas locked eyes with Score. Better than pretending they never mattered. That didn't go unnoticed. It wasn't the words. It was a defiance. The refusal to cower or appease. From that day it started. Jonas became the target. In the halls, Score would shoulder pass him, just hard enough to bruise. Playa, a crystalline Aurari, would send high-pitched sonic pings only humans could hear. His food tray once dissolved into slime. The harassment wasn't official. It didn't need to be. The coalition's idea of cultural integration didn't account for subtle cruelty. Jonas had no protection. He kept showing up anyway. In the labs, he stayed late, learning devices with interfaces not designed for human fingers. In theory class, he asked questions no one else dared, about ethics, about the meaning behind rituals, about why empathy was seen as weakness. He never fought back physically. Not once. But he never backed down. One night, in the student commons, while the others reviewed hollow diagrams of abstract moral philosophy, Jonas sat alone with a book, an actual paper book, something ancient and bound in worn leather. Playa sauntered over. Still clinging to primitives? Jonas didn't look up, still mistaking cruelty for strength. Her crystalline frame pulsed, flashing red. We're only showing you your place. Jonas finally looked at her. You're afraid of something. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to remind me of it every day. She froze. The others noticed. But that night, something shifted. Later, in a dark corner of the dormitory tower, Score found Jonas sitting beneath a starlight simulator. Alone, you could have gone back to Earth. Jonas shrugged. Could have. Didn't. Score watched him for a moment. You're stubborn. Call a human. A silence stretched. Then, we broke a human once. During a skirmish near the Andari belt. He cried, begged, bled. Jonas didn't flinch. Then you didn't break him. You just watched him be human. Score leaned close. Why aren't you afraid of me? I am, Jonas said plainly. I just don't care. Score walked away. And for a time, the bullying lessened. It never stopped. But the overt attacks became rare. Whispers remained. Isolation remained. But Jonas endured. Every day he chose to show up. And then came the assignment. All students were to visit each other's homeworlds. 1 week immersions. A test of adaptation, empathy, and exchange. When Jonas heard his first destination, he paused. Carvax Prime. Score's homeworld. The others laughed. Even Professor Zelquan looked uncertain. Score sneered. We'll see how long your human honor lasts in real gravity. Jonas simply nodded. As the shuttle approached the planet, the view shifted from stars to clouds laced with volcanic ash. Carvax Prime was brutal in its beauty. Jagged cliffs, boiling seas, dense jungles pulsing with bioluminescence. It was not a place designed for fragility. The moment Jonas stepped onto the surface, gravity crushed down like a weighted cloak. His knees buckled. Pain bloomed through his joints. But he stood. Score met him at the base of the landing pad. You'll break here. Jonas straightened. Then I'll break standing. The next days blurred into trial. They hiked for hours through toxic mists. Jonas coughed until he bled, but kept moving. The Score tested him. Physical feats, survival drills, intimidation tactics. He dropped cryptic warnings about the forest, about how humans were prey. But Jonas never asked for leniency. He never begged. One night, by the campfire, Score tossed him a piece of dried meat. Jonas eyed it. What is it? Predator heart. You eat it, you're part of the cycle. Jonas took a bite. Score laughed. Disgusting, isn't it? Yes, Jonas said, chewing. But if I can't stomach it, what right do I have to judge your culture? That was the first time the Score said nothing. On the 6th night, the storm hit. A plasma surge from a nearby sea ignited part of the forest. The winds howled. Visibility dropped. The camp was abandoned. Jonas and Score were separated. Jonas wandered for hours. His suit's navigation failed. The gravity made every step a battle. But he pushed forward until he heard the roar. It wasn't thunder. It was a creature, 12 limbs, plated skin, fangs like obsidian spears. A jungle hunter, and it had Score in its claws. Jonas didn't think. He moved, grabbing a smoldering branch. He plunged it into the creature's eye. It shrieked, thrashing. Jonas pulled Score free just before the beast collapsed, twitching. They collapsed together under the stars. Score stared at him, breathing ragged. Why? You'd have done the same, Jonas said. Score didn't respond, but he didn't deny it. When the search drones found them, Score stood between Jonas and the coalition retrieval team. He saved me. Don't you dare spin it otherwise. Back at the academy, whispers turned. Jonas' name spread, first with scorn, then confusion, then quiet awe. A human had survived Carvack's prime. More than that, he had saved one of their own. That night, in the dorm halls, a Siltari student left a protein bar at Jonas' door. A gesture, a start. He didn't smile, but he didn't feel alone anymore. The next leg of the journey was Earth, and none of them were ready for what they would find there. Rain had begun to fall in sheets over the jungle canopy, turning the soil into a thick slurry beneath Zara's boots. Each step came with a sucking sound, but she didn't slow, not even when branches whipped her face or when sharp vines tore at her sleeves. Pain was a distant echo, her focus tunneled absolute. There was no more wondering what they'd done to her children. She'd seen the charred playground, the tiny scorched shoes left untouched by scavengers. There was no doubt left. The Vorta had murdered them. Somewhere ahead, she could hear one of them moving, slowly, stupidly. It didn't know she was already tracking it. The Vorta moved like it owned the jungle, but it was loud, breaking leaves, speaking in clicks over calms like no predator she'd ever met. It was hunting. She was harvesting. Zara dropped low behind a thick root and peered through the darkness. Her eyes had long since adjusted to the gloom. 30 meters ahead, the Vorta's silhouette glowed faintly from its body-mounted emitter. They were arrogant, always broadcasting status, position, signals. That arrogance made her job easier. She waited, watching it lean against a tree, rifle cradled carelessly. A scout, younger, not yet seasoned with fear. It had no idea what was about to meet. She stood, took one silent step, then another, then lunged. Her blade went in at the base of the skull and up into the brainstem. No sound, no resistance, just a convulsion and collapse. She caught the alien's twitching body and lowered it silently to the forest floor. She whispered nothing. There was no rage left for words. She moved on, back at the ruined outpost. The fires had died down. The rain had washed away most of the ash. Zara's old team, those who still survived, had left markers in the code only she would understand. 2 cross sticks over a broken rock, meaning don't follow. We're not coming back. She'd already known they were gone. They'd told her once that loss made people fragile. She'd learned instead it made her fluid, like water moving downhill, relentless, unstoppable. Her grief didn't collapse her. It refined her. By morning, she'd eliminated 2 more scouts, silent, efficient kills, each body hidden beneath wet underbrush. They wouldn't be found until the smell of death drew scavengers. Zara didn't linger to admire her work. Each kill was a heartbeat closer to Command Node, the heart of the Vorta Strike Force, and she didn't have the luxury of gloating. She was a mother. She had work to do. Meanwhile, deep within the alien command vessel orbiting the planet, Commander Zero studied the mission updates in growing confusion. 3 units had gone silent. No alerts, no distress beacons, just silence. He drummed his claws against the interface. "This is impossible," he muttered. His adjutant, a pale-skinned tactician named Veal, approached with caution. "Commander, our readings suggest atmospheric interference. Local fauna may be interfering with signals." Zero shook his head. "No, atmospheric interference doesn't cut out life sign telemetry. We're not dealing with weather. Something is hunting us. Hunting us." Veal's voice carried a faint note of amusement. Zero turned slowly. "Yes, a human. That's unlikely. Our initial sweeps reported minimal resistance. The colonists were civilian grade. Farmers, educators." Zero leaned in. "And yet someone is killing our elite recon teams. Quietly. No traces." He pulled up a holographic image. Zara's face. A deep scan from the orbital archive before they destroyed the records. Her file had been marked non-combatant. This woman's children were confirmed deceased in the first sweep. Then her dwelling was found empty. She left behind weapons. Ration packs are missing. Human military design. And these kills, they have tactics. Veal hesitated. If it's truly her, she's alone. Just one woman. Then why are you afraid to go down there yourself? Zero snapped. Veal flinched. He had no answer. Back on the surface, Zara climbed a cliffside ravine hand over hand. Rain blinding her, fingers slipping over slick rock. Her breath came in slow bursts. Not from exertion, but from control. She was within 3 clicks of the command post. She'd memorized their patrol cycles, stolen one of their devices, modified it. Now she could hear their comms. They didn't know she was listening. They still thought she was a rumor. She set camp briefly in a cave above a waterfall. She didn't sleep. Instead, she sharpened her knives, cleaned her rifle, ate half a ration bar. No fire, no lights, just a methodical routine of someone who didn't plan to die tomorrow. The cave wall bore old markings, scratches from another life, maybe another war. She left her own mark, a small symbol carved beneath a ledge. It was meaningless to the aliens, but to her, it was a promise. When she moved out again, she did so with deadly purpose. By the 4th day, the Vorta changed their patterns. They were becoming afraid. She heard it in their voices, more hesitation, more silence. Their patrols doubled up, walked tighter formations. They stopped broadcasting idle chatter. And yet they kept dying. Zara left one body hanging from a tree, not for cruelty. For message, she knew they'd find it. She knew what it would do to their morale. Humans weren't just prey. Humans didn't run. Sometimes, when pushed beyond reason, humans became the thing that stalked monsters in the dark. Veal found the body first. The alien's chest had been carved, not mutilated, but marked. A single word, etched with surgical precision into the exoskin. Mother. Zero stared at the image, then turned from the console. She wants us to know it's personal. She's trying to terrorize us. It's working. Veal swallowed his response. The commander's tone had changed. Less disdain, more caution. They both knew what it meant when a human stopped being afraid. Zara, crouched on a ridge overlooking the command node, counted sentries. Their field base was dug into the jungle basin, camouflaged under biochemo mesh, infrared dampeners, and motion scatterers. To most drones or scouts, it was invisible, but she wasn't using drones. She used instinct. She studied their habits. She watched their rhythm. And when she moved like a ghost across the skin of the earth. She struck first at the power relay, a shaped charge made from repurposed fuel cells and thermite paste. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. The fireball lit the jungle like dawn, and with it came confusion, screams, scrambled voices. Her next move was already in play. She slid down the ravine in the chaos, past stunned guards blinded by smoke. One reached for his weapon. Too slow. Her elbow shattered its throat. Another turned and fired blind. His shot clipped her arm. She didn't flinch. She drove a blade into his spine, twisted, and moved on. By the time the Vorta organized a response, she was already inside their perimeter. Sirens blared. Their commanders shouted in their alien tongue. But they were disorganized, sloppy. They weren't used to being attacked in their own nest. Zara moved through the base like a whisper. She wasn't trying to kill all of them, only the ones between her and the command tent. And Zero, he was inside. She could feel it. The door was sealed. She planted explosives. Open it! A voice said behind her. She turned slowly. One of the guards had caught up, a tall Vorta, armored, weapon raised. "I'll shoot," he said in accented Terran. Zara's eyes didn't blink. "You won't. Try me?" She did. The fight was brutal, no finesse, just rage and precision. She dodged, struck, parried. He was strong, but she was angry. When he tried to grapple her, she drove a knife into his eye. He fell. The door blew open behind her. She stepped inside. Zero rose from his command chair, unarmed but not unafraid. The look in his eyes wasn't fear. It was realization. "You're her," he said. "The one we mocked." Zara raised her pistol. "You kill my children." He nodded. "We thought it would break you." It did. Her shot took him through the heart. She stood over the fallen alien, chest heaving, smoke curling from her weapon. Around her, the base crumbled, fires spreading, sirens dying. She walked out without a word. Behind her, the command post collapsed into flame. And above, in the cold silence of orbit, every Vorta ship received the same message, broadcast across all channels. A human voice. "This is not your world. We are not your prey. You made a mistake." Then silence and fear under the blood-orange sky of Athenar's northern hemisphere. The wind screamed over the jagged cliffs of the Vexor Ridge. Plasma burn still sizzled against the broken stone, remnants of the ambush that had turned a platoon of Imperial commandos into unrecognizable slag. Smoke wove through the atmosphere like ghosts of the fallen. And there, in the silence left behind, moved the last person anyone expected to survive. Sergeant Cale Arden's boots crunched over scorched gravel as he moved with careful precision. His camo-patterned fatigues were caked in ash and dirt, and his chest rig bore blackened edges from near-lethal hits. Every step he took was methodical, controlled, like a predator moving through a nest of smaller beasts. He wasn't looking for survivors. He was a survivor. He crouched beside the body of a Sangari captain, one of the more elite alien species within the Empire's military. Its four arms sprawled unnaturally, upper torso cracked open from a direct hit. Cale checked the corpse's comms node. Burned out. Useless. But the uniform told him everything. This wasn't just a reconnaissance unit. This had been a kill team. They came for him specifically. A soft rustle to the left. Cale didn't turn his head. Instead, his right hand slid instinctively toward the sidearm holstered low on his thigh. "You're either very brave," he said quietly, "or incredibly stupid." A voice answered in a whisper just above the wind. "We're both, and we're not here to kill you." Cale straightened slowly, eyes scanning the rocks. From behind a boulder stepped a figure in charcoal gray armor, not Imperial. The gear was battered, mismatched, and covered in the dust of a dozen worlds. A visor retracted to reveal a young woman, human, though her eyes carried the weight of someone twice her age. "Name's Reyes. Captain Reyes, unofficially. We've been following your trail." Cale didn't lower his guard. "We." 3 more figures emerged, all human, all armed. Their gear told him they were survivors like him. Probably ex-military, maybe deserters or those caught in the chaos when Earth's colonies were seized. Their eyes all settled on him the way scavengers watch a lion. Cautious, respectful, terrified. "What do you want?" Cale asked. "To help," Reyes said, "and to survive." Cale considered that. The concept of trust had become almost mythical to him. He had seen too many ambushes disguised as handshakes, but he'd also seen desperation. And that's what Reyes reeked of, not deception, but the raw, scraping hunger of people who had run out of choices. He gave a slight nod, then talked fast. "Imperial signals will bounce back soon." Reyes wasted no time. "You're on every bulletin board in the Empire. They flagged you Class Omega. The kind of status they reserve for bioweapons or rogue AI. Kale's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes narrowed. They're afraid of you, she continued. You've embarrassed them, killed too many, broken patterns. And worse, you did alone. Then maybe you should be afraid too, Kale said flatly. Reyes gave a tight, bitter smile. We are, but we're more afraid of dying in a ditch, forgotten. We need you, Kale. He hated that name spoken by others. Hated how it made him sound human when he no longer felt like one. But he didn't correct her. We have a lead, she continued. A weapons cache. Human tech, real old school stuff. Pre-Union era. The kind of thing that doesn't rely on galactic tech. The kind the Imperials don't know how to counter. And what's the catch? It's in a dead zone. No drones, no orbital support. Just us and whatever's guarding it. Kale nodded slowly. How do you know it's even there? Reyes pulled out a small cube and pressed aside. A hologram flickered into life, showing schematics of an underground facility. Dated, faded, but undeniably Terran. It was a fallback bunker, abandoned just before the final surrender. One of my squad's ancestors built it, and the data says it was never breached. Kale stared at the projection, then looked at the group. You're asking me to walk into an Imperial death trap for weapons that may not exist. No, Reyes said. We're offering you the only thing the Empire still fears. A chance to hit back. That stirred something inside him. Not hope. He wasn't foolish enough for that. But purpose. The kind that had gotten buried under years of blood and fire. All right, he said finally. We move at dawn. They didn't cheer. There was no bravado. Just a quiet nod from each one, as if acknowledging they had stepped onto a path that might kill them, but would kill something bigger if they succeeded. They set camp in a crevice below the ridge. No fires. No lights. Just protein packs and silence. Kale watched in the dim twilight, how they moved, how they carried their weapons. Reyes was the only one who had seen real combat. The others? Probably scavengers, militia, maybe former engineers. But they looked at her like she was the glue holding their sanity together. You ever leave before? Kale asked her as they sat apart from the rest. Once, during the fall of Atlas Colony. Didn't go well. Everyone died? She shook her head. I did, for 28 seconds. Med unit brought me back. Still hear the screaming sometimes. Kale studied her face, the slight tremor in her fingers, the weariness in her voice. She wasn't lying, and that mattered. You carry the weight well, he said. No, she replied. I just got good at hiding the cracks. Kale didn't sleep that night. He listened to the breathing of the others, the wind over the rocks, the distant, eerie howls of native predators. He cataloged every sound, every shift in rhythm. It was how he survived, not through strength, through vigilance. By morning, they were moving. The dead zone was 20 kilometers southeast, through a canyon laced with thermal anomalies and unstable rock. Perfect for ambushes. Kale took point. Reyes held the rear. They moved like ghosts. Midway through the pass, Kale spotted the glint of something in the distance. Too deliberate to be natural, he motioned for the group to halt, scanning the walls. A faint vibration underfoot confirmed his suspicion. Charges, he muttered. Pressure activated. Reyes cursed under her breath. They set traps? No, Kale said. This is an Imperial tech. These are ours. He advanced carefully, tracing the faint wiring that connected the embedded devices. Claymores. Old-fashioned, brutal, but reliable. Whoever set these knew someone would come back one day, he murmured. Reyes crouched beside him. Can we disarm them? Not safely, but I can redirect them. It took 10 minutes. When he finished, He turned to the group. Stay tight. Don't stray. If they go off, they'll go outward. They passed through the narrow bend, hearts in their throats. The tension was a physical thing, like a coiled wire behind their spines. But nothing triggered. And then, rising from behind a rust-stained hill, they saw it. The entrance to the bunker, half buried in shale and debris, but intact. The blast doors bore the old insignia of the Earth Union. A phoenix wrapped in chains, wings still outstretched. Reyes stepped forward first. We're really here. Cale approached the terminal beside the door. Ancient, corroded, but still functional. He ran a gloved hand across the screen, and to his surprise, it lit up Input Security Code. He turned to Reyes. I only have part of it, she said. Try this. Omega 69 Delta, then the name Prometheus. Cale entered it slowly. The terminal blinked red, then green. A hiss of decompressing air followed, and the doors rumbled open. Darkness greeted them, cold and heavy. But it was a different kind of dark. Not the void of failure, but the kind you stepped into when digging a forgotten power. Cale looked back at the team. This changes everything, he said, and stepped inside. The stale air inside the bunker tasted of metal and rot. Emergency lights flickered weakly along the walls, casting long, shivering shadows that made every corridor feel like a throat about to close. Cale moved first, sweeping with his carbine, each step echoing with grim certainty. Reyes followed close, her eyes scanning behind them. The others, silent, tense, kept tight formation. None of them spoke. This place was a grave, and they were walking through its bones. The first level was mostly empty. Desks overturned. Terminals dead. The remnants of final, desperate evacuation. But the walls still bore signs of resistance. Scorch marks, broken weapons, blood turned brown with age. They weren't the first to breach the bunker, but they might be the first to survive it. Cale paused at a sealed security door. This is it, he muttered, fingers brushing across the lock panel. Vault's behind here. Reyes stepped up beside him, producing a chipped key card. Let's hope the stories were true. She slid the card into the reader. A long, agonizing pause followed. Then the lock disengaged with a heavy thud. The door cracked open. Inside was a chamber untouched by time. Weapon racks lined the walls. Rows of railguns, chemical slug throwers, rocket-propelled systems built for siege warfare. There were crates stamped with hazard insignias, and amidst it all, a reinforced glass pod holding a single, sleek object, black, angular, and humming softly even after all these years. Cale stepped toward it, eyes narrowing. That's not standard issue. Reyes nodded. That's the pulse catalyst. Human designed. Untraceable, fires a micrograviton round that destabilizes energy-based shields and electronics. The Empire calls it a ghost killer. Cale let out a slow breath. No wonder they buried this place. One of the younger survivors, Jace, approached a railgun and ran his fingers along it reverently. We have enough firepower here to level a garrison. More than that, Cale said. We can start a war. A silent moment followed. It wasn't the kind of silence that feared death, but the kind that recognized what stood ahead of it. Then, from the corridor behind them, came a faint chime, a proximity alert, followed by static. Cale moved like a knife unsheathed. He slammed the crate shut and spun to the others. They found us. How long? Reyes pulled a data pad, checked the interference pattern. Best guess? 20 minutes. No evac, Cale said flatly. We hold. Jace looked up, pale. We fight. Cale turned to him. We win. They move fast. Cale ordered the vault locked down, distributed weapons, and set up a defensive pattern. Fallback points, kill corridors, pressure-activated mines from the very same cache they'd uncovered. Reyes worked the auxiliary systems, restoring limited power to motion sensors and internal cameras. And then, like a blade slipping between ribs, the Empire came. It wasn't a bombardment. No heavy artillery. No drones. Just silence, then movement. The first Imperial infiltrator was a Noric elite, cloaked in refractive armor that bent light until it shimmered like mist. But Kale saw it, felt it. He fired first. The railgun roared like thunder in a cathedral. The alien was flung against the wall, its armor smoking. The rest came after. Reyes gunned down a second infiltrator, her hand steady, breath even. Behind her, the others held, barely. Jace fired wildly but found his footing. The eldest, Thorn, braced a launcher and brought down part of the ceiling on a flanking squad. Kale moved through it all like a phantom, faster than thought, calculating angles, conserving ammo, directing fire. Reyes left corridor. Jace, reload and hold that breach. They were outnumbered 10-1. But the Empire hadn't prepared for defense like this. Not from humans. The next wave brought a fire team of Sangari shock troopers. They hit hard, plasma bolts melting metal, energy grenades collapsing cover. One of Kale's team, Lyra, took a hit and didn't scream. She just dropped, eyes wide and glassy. Reyes didn't stop. She knelt beside Lyra's body, only long enough to grab her weapon and pass it to Jace. "Keep firing," she said. "Make it count." Kale set a breaching charge at the central choke point, then dragged Reyes back before it blew. The tunnel collapsed, taking 5 aliens with it. But that only bought them minutes. "Too many," she hissed. "They're inside." "No," Kale said. "They're trapped with us." He activated a dormant defense grid in the upper corridor. Sentry turrets snapped to life, mowing down the next squad before they cleared the corner. Kale didn't smile, but his voice carried steel. They thought this was a relic. They didn't realize it's a tomb. He was right. The Empire had come expecting ruins, but they had stepped into a fortress, a last testament to the human refusal to die quietly. By the third hour, the fighting became surgical. No more waves, just specialists, assassin drones, telepathic operatives, augmented duelists bred for war. Kale killed them all. Not alone. Reyes took down a Hunter-class Sentinel with a precision shot that blew its neural matrix apart. Jace planted explosives along the retreat paths. Even Thorn, wounded and leaning against a wall, gutted a Sangari brute with serrated mining blade. And then, just as the air began to stink with plasma and cordite, the fighting stopped. No footsteps. No movement. Kale held still, breathing like a statue. "They're pulling back." Reyes frowned. "Why?" "We didn't break them." Kale's face darkened. "They're not retreating. They're regrouping. Something's coming." He was right. The far wall burst inward as something massive tore through it. A towering figure in black obsidian armor, standing 3 meters tall. It moved with horrifying precision. A Varan warden, an enforcer bred not for war, but for eradication. Kale stepped forward, slow and calm. Everyone else fall back. Reyes grabbed his arm. "You can't take that thing." "Maybe not," he said, "but I can distract it." Before she could argue, he moved. The warden lunged with inhuman speed, and Kale ducked, rolled, and fired point blank. The railgun cracked his chest plate, but didn't stop it. The warden struck, and Kale flew across the chamber, slamming into a pillar. Blood trickled from his mouth. He rose anyway. "Is that all?" he growled. The warden advanced. Kale drew a pulse grenade from his belt, activated it, and shoved it into the exposed joint of the alien's knee. The blast rocked the chamber. The warden staggered, legs failing. Reyes leapt from cover, emptying her weapon into the gaps in its armor. Finally, the machine beast collapsed. Smoke curled from Kale's side as Reyes helped him to his feet. "You're bleeding." "Nothing vital." They regrouped in the vault. Silence again. No more enemies. No more motion on the sensors. Reyes looked at the others. 2 dead, 3 injured. But alive. Alive mattered. Kale pulled the pulse catalyst from its case and turned it over in his hands. "They'll come again. We'll be ready," Reyes said. He looked at her, expression unreadable. Then he spoke quietly. "Not here. Not just defense. We hit them." "Hit them?" Kale's voice hardened. "Take this fight to the stars. No more hiding. No more surviving. Revenge." Jay stepped forward. "But we're just a handful." Kale turned toward him, toward all of them. "That's all we've ever been. A few. A flame in the dark. And they thought they'd smothered it." He handed the catalyst to Reyes. "We've lit it again. Let's burn them with it." The team stood in silence. The Empire would send more, and more after that. But something had changed here, something irreversible. The myth of human submission had been broken. Kale stared at the old Earth flag etched into the wall, cracked, faded, but proud. Time to remind the galaxy why they used to fear us. And with that, they walked into the dark, carrying fire.